With the basic outline of our guard piece roughed in, we're going to spend some time in this video adding the hole that will be needed in order for the piece to be fastened to the helmet itself. Before we start that, however, I do want to perform a tiny bit of cleanup here, and so with the geometry selected, let's add a new Edit Poly modifier to the stack, come into Edge Subobject mode, and select all of the internal edges along the bottom of our shape here. In the Edit Edges rollout in the command panel, we can then Control-click on the Remove button in order to get rid of all of that unnecessary detail. Now we're holding down the Control key as we click here, of course, because we also want to remove the related vertices as well. In Vertex Subobject mode now, let's select the two sets of vertices sitting on either side of our tab extension, hit R to engage the Scale tool, and then in the Edit panel on the ribbon, turn on the Constrain to Edge option, which means we can now scale these out ever so slightly so that we don't get as hard a transition once we add the Open Subdiv modifier, although we can of course come back and tweak this positioning should we want or need to. Let's then turn off that constraint before we forget, and after jumping back into Edge mode by pressing the 2 key, we can select all of the horizontal edges in our tab. In the Loops panel, let's Shift-click on the Connect button, making sure that it is creating just a single edge, and then after hitting Apply and Continue, select the vertical edges, and then click OK. What we have now is a vertex sitting right at the center of our tab piece, which of course is exactly where we want the center of our hole to be. We can now come over to the Create tab in the command panel, and in the Shapes section, click to engage the Circle tool. To be able to focus entirely on what we're doing now, let's just quickly click to exit and then re-enter isolation mode, and press the S key to engage our snaps, which should still have vertex mode enabled. As soon as we see our little yellow crosshair snap to the center vertex then, let's click and drag to create our circle, which we want to be roughly half the size of the surrounding tab geometry. After right-clicking to exit Create mode, we can jump into the Modify tab on the command panel, and in the Interpolation rollout, set the steps value to 1. All of this will, of course, seem very familiar to us, as we have already followed this very same process earlier in the course. Jumping into Vertex mode on our guard geometry, let's select the central vertex, Shift-click on the Chamfer tool in the Vertices panel, and then set the chamfer value so that we more or less line up with the vertices on our circle shape, and then click OK. From the Edit panel, let's grab the Cut tool, and again follow the same procedure as earlier. Shift right-click to bring up our Snaps quad menu, and make sure that both the Vertex and Midpoint options are enabled, meaning we can now cut from the corner vertex on our tab to the center of our newly created edge, making sure, of course, we do this for all 4 quadrants on the mesh. With that done, let's Shift right-click in the viewport in order to turn off the Midpoint option, engage the Move tool using the W key, and then snap each of the vertices on our tab here to the corresponding verts on our reference shape, making certain that we move only in the X and Y planes. Once they are all nicely in position, we can jump into Polygon Subobject mode and select the polygon sitting in the center. And then, from the Polygons panel on the ribbon, Shift-click the Inset tool. We want to inset to a value of about 0.05 centimeters here. Click OK, and then hit the Delete button. If we come out of Subobject mode now and delete our reference shape, we can see, if we frame up on our geometry here, that we have our hole cut out and ready for smoothing. What we need to do first, of course, is create 3 copies of this shape, arrange them in the correct configuration, and then figure out how we can apply smoothing to them in a way that creates the finished shape that we want. All of which we will start to look at in our next video.